Hey, good evening, everyone. Good evening. And welcome to the first book signing for I Hate the Male I Love, not a male bashing book. A conscious relationship. Oh, wait, I didn't. It's my 2 minutes of fame. Conscious relationship is your key to success. I'm here to introduce Joan E. Childs. Joan, I don't even know what E stands for.
Exceptional.
Joan E. Childs, woman extraordinaire, published author, inspirational speaker, life coach, psychotherapist. Mother, grandmother, pet parent, and vegetarian, if that's even relevant. I don't know. She's a Miami Beach native, Beach High, class of 75, 57. I'm dyslexic sometimes. Class of 57. Do the math. It's incredible. You know, that means she is
22.
She's fabulous. 22 plus a half a century.
82 years young.
She was homecoming princess. She even had the glam back then, and she dated Elvis. Weinstein.
I want to hear about my booking.
She dated Elvis Presley. I know that for a fact. So her first book, The Myth of the Maiden, caught the attention of Oprah, and she was invited to be a guest on her show. Her second book, Why Did She Jump? My daughter's battle with bipolar disorder, sadly was written about Pamela, her eldest of 5 children. And now we have I Hate the Man I Love. Okay, so I know you didn't come here to listen to me talk, but I'm going to read you one endorsement on the back. If I can put on my cheap glasses. I Hate the Man I Love will blow your mind and touch your heart. Joan writes like she talks, sassy and spontaneous with experience, wit, and wisdom. My hat is off to you, Miss Childs. Thank you for turning this difficult subject into an easy to read book written by Adele Zum, a regular person. So anyway, I know you didn't come here and listen to me talk, so I'm going to zip it, and without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to introduce my good friend, guest of honor, woman of the hour, Joan Elaine Childs.
Well, thank you, Adele, who I call a doll, for the illustrious introduction. I am greatly appreciative of everything. She created this. It was her wisdom, her creativity, her tenacity, like a terrorist, that made this thing happen. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I also want to thank each and every one of you who traveled through this traffic tonight from wherever you came. And we have some competition with the Art Basel, and the season is now here. So I appreciate more than you can imagine. I am truly humbled and grateful for the fact that you came here to support this effort. It has been a major challenge because the book was actually written in 2015. It took about a year to find somebody to publish it, so I have to thank Don Lesney, Phil Fredericks, who decided or thought that he had faith in me, and he wanted to publish the book, and he's here now, so I want to thank you publicly, Don, for believing in me with this book. That was an effort unto itself. And then we were challenged by everything that could go wrong. The timing, timing is everything in life. And we were faced with, like all of you, with the outbreak of the pandemic, which really impacted the release of the book. It took about 2.5 years to finally get it out. It got out last October, and I had no place to sell it. because all the bookstores were not having any kind of book signings. And I think at the time, Don, correct me if I'm wrong, because of the pandemic, book sales were down 78%. And the only people that really were able to sell their books were the political people that were writing about Trump or about his niece, about him, about Michael Cohen, and about Jeffrey Epstein, and all the ones that were making the headlines on Fox News or CNN. So I came to the back of the room, in the back of the line, and my book, I Hate the Man I Love, A Conscious Relationship is Your Key to Success, was kind of like a baby compared to what was out there. So this was a tremendous effort and a soulful content of my life. So again, I'm going to appreciate all of you that helped me. And my ex-husband, Paul Glassman, is here, and he provided the gentleman in the back, I can't remember your name, Armand, okay, who is going to be helping with wine and cheese. And I wanted to say thank you to you also. And I want to say thank you to
Faye.
Thank you for coming here to videotape and to help out with the production. All this takes a lot of, it's kind of like a village that you raise a child. It's a village to promote a book. So I am so deeply grateful to all of you. And I want to mention everyone, Av Cooperman, I have my ex-husband and my ex-boyfriend here, and that's why I became relationship therapist. And Av provided the wine, as well as Norman Cement, who used to be at one time the mayor of Miami Beach. So thank you for coming, and your wife, Joan E. And if I left anybody out, please forgive me. I just wanted to tell you how humbled I am that you showed up tonight in spite of all of the effort that we're going on outside, and how grateful I am to each and every one of you. So having had said all that, I'll go to the next thing, the book. All right, this book was born out of 43 plus years of private practice, from the women that would come in spewing, complaining, cursing. I don't want to even use the words. I hate him, I hate him, I hate him. He is a jerk. He is an asshole. I can't say the rest of the words that they said because it wouldn't be polite to say it. Stomping their feet, getting up and saying, I'm done. They took their Prada bags or their Louis Vuitton bags or whatever they had, threw it over their shoulders, walked out of my office, slammed the doors. I could hear their heels clicking down, and I could barely breathe. And sometimes if their husbands or their partners were there, the guys would look at me and I'd look at them and they'd throw their clothes, not knowing what to do. Then they come back and they would say the same thing. I hate him, he doesn't listen, he's a jerk, blah, 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 blah. And then I would say, well, if you hate him, why are you with him? And you know the answer, don't you? Because
I love him.
I love him. So love-hate is I think it's in our DNA. I think it's part of the human experience. And I think I know that we can have oppositional feelings coexisting simultaneously. Not only with our partners, our husbands, our wives. By the way, I have never once heard a man say, I hate her. This is an honorable woman here. I've heard a lot of other things, but I have never heard I hate her. They judge, no question. They name call, but I've never heard a man once say, I hate her. So thank you. But oppositional feelings that can coexist simultaneously is not just with your partner, not with your husband. You can feel that way about your kids. You can love your children and hate some of their behaviors. You can love your friends and hate some of their behaviors. Your bosses. I mean, just so many people, when you think about it, have the ability to bring out the worst in you, and some of them have the ability to bring out the best in you simultaneously. It's kind of like if you're ever thinking about leaving the guy that brings you to orgasm and anger in the same day, read the book. So it's a very common part of being a human being, to have oppositional feelings coexisting simultaneously. So the birth of the book, it was born out of the mouth of babes, and I don't mean babies, I mean women, that I heard the same thing over. When I kept hearing, I hate him, but I love him, I thought, so you hate the man you love? And I'd say, wow, that's a good title for a book. And now came the book, I Hate the Man I Love. However, there was a subtitle that has a lot of value to it. A conscious relationship is your key to success. So I was raised in Miami Beach. I went to South Beach Elementary. I went to Miami Beach High School. And we have an author here that wrote a book on Beach High, Roz Merritt. So it's all about Beach High growing up in the 50s. And a lot of people that were classmates of mine have read this book. I grew up in the 50s, which was the last age of innocence. We practiced apartheid in Miami Beach at the time, but we didn't realize it because we didn't really develop a social conscience until, I guess for me, I don't remember having a social conscience until Kennedy was killed in '63. And then from there on, Vietnam and so forth. But we were living in a bubble. This city was a bubble. We didn't know that we were practicing apartheid. We would roller skate in Flamingo Park with only one light in the center of Flamingo Park for the roller skating rink, and then they turned the lights out and we would walk out of the park, which was at least 2 or 3 blocks. Never a mugging, nobody got raped, nobody got knifed, nobody kidnapped, nobody committed suicide. It was really magical living in the last age of innocence. And I have to tell you that you can't, your parents today cannot raise children the way they did the parents raised you, because the world has changed tremendously. And relationships have changed tremendously. We have over 50% of divorce. I am part of that. Me and you also. I've been married and divorced 4 times. I'm not proud of that, but it's the truth, so I say it as it is. Relationships are tough. They're really tough. So I wrote the book based on truth. I can't begin to tell you how many relationships fall apart because they don't have the ability or the conscious awareness to be able to work through issues. Where does this come from? We all know this. Anybody in psychotherapy knows this. We came from families that we didn't have good modeling. And we just know what we know. We learn what we have been modeled to. We've come, every family to a greater or lesser extent comes from a dysfunctional family because parents just don't have eyes in the back of their head. So there's a lot of unresolved conflicts, unresolved childhood wounds that we schlep into our adult relationships unwittingly and unconsciously, not aware of what we're bringing to the banquet. And what we end up doing is we choose a partner unconsciously, unwittingly, that will bring us the biggest nightmare of our lives in order to work through unresolved issues from the past. But we're not aware of it. So we end up hiring these people to help us work this out, and then we end up firing them for the very reason that we hired them for. That's what makes so many divorces. Now this is a different culture that was brought up in my time, my parents. I was the first divorced person in my whole family. And before that, I mean, it was like a shame to be divorced. We just didn't do it. You made your bed and you lived in it. My father said to me with his finger like this, "You are making the biggest mistake of your life. You're going to live to regret this for the rest of your life because you are nothing without him." And my mother peeped in and she said, "Joan E, any father is better than no father at all. And if you want to get a divorce, you wait for Aaron, who was 3 years old at the time, to grow up, and then you get a divorce." And I said, "Mom, I'll be 60 years old." I'm too. So anyway, they walked out of the house and didn't talk to me, didn't come back for 9 months. I had to call a rabbi to help re-enter that relationship, to help us work it through. It worked out okay in the end. So this is a ubiquitous, very common issue among clients, and as a result, because of my own personal struggles with relationships,
What is that noise?
I decided to make it a mission. Something that I wanted to figure out, why does this happen? How do we fix it? So I studied with many wonderful contributors to the field of marriage and family counseling, starting with Virginia Satir back in the 50s, who was the founder of family therapy. And at the time they booed her, and they thought that it was new, and anything that's new in medicine or in mental health becomes questionable. You know, it's a fringe, and it's always questionable until finally it's introduced to the masses of the professionals in our field. So in writing the book, I realized that I had a common denominator. I mean, I want to ask you a question, and I want you to be honest. Just raise your hands. How many of you have felt hate for the man that you've loved? Yeah. And the hate isn't really a nice word. It's a nasty word, especially now. When I wrote the book in 2015, it had a different connotation. It didn't have the nastiness that goes with it. By the time it got out and published and released, hate became a different sound. And so I have to apologize for that, because it became very controversial when men would hear, "I hate the man I loved," and their wife was reading the book. They would say, "What are you doing that for?" And I have to make a disclaimer right now. This book is not a male bashing book at all. If anything, men can really learn about having a conscious relationship. Is that thing in a way? Can you all hear me without the mic?
Yes.
Because I have a very soft voice, but anyway, I'm glad you can. So it is not a male bashing book. It is a book to how to learn to reconnect. Because we are hardwired for connection. Our brains are hardwired for connection. And when we disconnect, we go into crisis, real crisis. Martin Buber, the Jewish philosopher, said that our relationships do not, hi, come on in. Our relationships do not live in you or me, him or her or her, him or him. Our relationships live in the space between. And that space is sacred space. And we have to work very hard to keep that space sacred, because over the years what happens is that it becomes polluted. And that's the playground of where the children live. So they only know what they know, and they learn from what they see as a model of behavior, their parents and how their parents resolve their conflicts. How many of your parents resolved their conflicts? Anybody in here had parents that you could model after that result? I know that my parents, you did, okay. That's why we got divorced, right? And we're divorced 45 years, and he's sitting in the front seat here supporting this whole event. So we're good friends, really good friends. It can happen. You can go from better friendships than better marriage partners. It's very common. I tell that to all of my people that are getting divorced. You know, relax. You never know how this is going to work out. You might even get married again, or be a friend. And when I say be a friend, they go, never ever be a friend. It never happened. You'd be surprised. Time heals a lot of wounds, and I know that's a contrite statement, but it's true. So I wrote this book based on Hedy Schleifer, who was my mentor. I have attended and been certified over and over. I don't even have space in my house for all my certifications on marriage and family therapy. And I also do inner child work, which really kind of folds in to couples work. Now, why is my book different than so many other books? We have thousands of books on relationships that are wonderful. Harville Hendricks, Getting the Love You Want, which is on logotherapy. John Gottman, I can go on and on about all of the wonderful books that are out there, and they are. My book is a little different. I spent a lot of time to try to make it different so that people would buy it and learn from it. It is informative, it is didactic, and it's how-to in many ways, but what's so different and so distinctive about the book is that you become a fly on the wall, so it becomes a vision. You are in the room with me, with a couple, and you see how I work with a couple to take them from disconnect to reconnect. And people really need people. I mean, when Barbra Streisand made that song, people who need people are the luckiest people in the world, it came out at a wrong time because everybody felt, I don't need anybody. You know, I am me and I am by myself but that's not true. People need people. And people live longer and healthier and happier when they're in relationships than when they're not. This is a fact. I looked it up with Google last night. And not only did I look it up on Google last night, just to reinforce the fact that I already knew it, but I just wanted to know that it was researched and proven. Not only did I look up that fact, but I also found out, well, if we don't do divorce, if we don't do marriage well in the United States of America, we have 52-53% divorce. Who does it well? Let's find out who does it well. So Av and I were talking about it last night, and we looked it up. 2 countries, Sri Lanka and Vietnam. They have the least divorce in the world. I don't know why that is, but culture and religion and family traditions all play into it. So I don't even know if that's really what we can go by, modeling who does it right. Because we live in a different culture, we live in a different religion, so we really can't model that. So basically, where are we going to go next when we finish this, when we get it right? I have had so much success in my practice with marital issues, marital conflict, that it's amazing that I've turned couples who were ready to sign the papers to divorce, turned them back into a sacred space once again. How long they stayed that way, I don't know, because many of them have stayed and maintained it, and many have not. And really, it isn't up to me. You need a cooperative partnership. So like anything else, if you want to play the piano, if you want to take tennis up it, if you want to become a painter, a writer, whatever it is, you study what makes a good writer, what makes a good painter, what makes a good tennis player, and then you practice. You cannot do it unless you practice and you integrate it into your life. Otherwise, it just won't work. So I'm a great quarterback as a therapist, a psychotherapist. But I don't always have a great wide receiver, so the ball goes dead a lot. But if we go through the process of reconnecting, which I'm going to tell you about, it's amazing, and before my eyes, I see reconnection. I see people looking into their partner's eyes and crying without saying a word. That's how I start the process. It's in here, in chapter 6 and chapter 7. I'm not going to read it for you because I want you to read it yourself. I want you to buy the book. But I do tell you that that's the distinction between a lot of other books that are wonderful books. It takes you into my therapy session. You're a fly on the wall and you see it happen. Now, it doesn't always work. We are not perfect. I'm not perfect. Couples aren't perfect. But the intention is there. So here's my bottom line. And I got this from Hetty Schleifer, who is a master couples therapist. And I'm still in touch with her. And the 40 people that came from all over the world to study for 3 years with us under her. She was our mentor. She has a selective audience. She will only take couples who give a big, fat yes, which means they both want to move forward, they both want to heal, they're really disgusted with their relationship, they're worried about their relationship, they're scared, they don't know what to do, they've tried this, they've tried that, they've been to 2 or 3 therapists before me, and they're still struggling to get it right. So I will only take clients or couples that give me a big fat yes. Do you want to go forward? Do you want this to work? Do you want to try to find out where you've gone wrong and put it back together so that you can be models for your children, so they can grow up and understand what a mature, healthy relationship is all about, because they only learn from you anyway. And they don't listen to what you say, they watch what you do. That's how they know. So the process is very interesting, and I don't want to spend too much time because I want to be able to have questions and answers, and I appreciate that you're listening, because it is a very small window that I have to be able to give you this information and share the book with you. One of the things I do want to do is I want to hear from you. I'm looking for questions and answers and comments, but I want to complete this first. So I want to read a section of the book. I mean, the book has got, I didn't know which one to give you, so I decided on the very last chapter, A Conscious Relationship, because that's what I have in my subtitle. A conscious relationship is your key to success. So what is a conscious relationship? This I need my new
Does you need your glasses?
I have my new ones.
I'm sorry, let me just shift perspective.
I just had cataract surgery, so it's a little bit cloudy still, or wet. So I'm going to teach you what most people do not have that they need. That's the reason that they cannot really connect and stay connected. This works when you read, but I can't see a thing when I put mine. So most of us grew up in a dysfunctional family to a greater or lesser degree. I was fortunate. I had wonderful parents. They adored me. They didn't do anything really wrong. We were very poor. I came from South Beach. I didn't know that I was poor until I went to Beach High. Then I suddenly realized the haves and the have-nots. We only had one high school here. But they did the best that they could. They were both working people, and they tried hard to give me a value system and principles to do the right thing. I was raised in a Jewish home. It wasn't kosher, but the values were there. There was no question. However, they weren't perfect. For instance, I'll just give you a little bit of a personal story. I wanted a doll when I was 5 years old because my next door neighbor had a bridal doll. And I looked at that doll, and that's the only thing I ever wanted. But my father said, that's not going to do you any good in life. And I said to myself at 5 years old, what do I get shit about? It's going to happen in my life. I want that bridal doll. That's what I wanted. But he wouldn't give it to me. And part of it was because he grew up in the Depression, and he grew up in Hester Street, the east side, lower east of New York, and he slept on 2 chairs, and they were so poor. His family just came from Poland. They had nothing. So values and principles were based on things that could be helpful for you to grow economically and to learn either a trade or education, because education was paramount. Nothing mattered more than education. And it was thrown down my throat over and over. So a doll, a bridal doll that I wanted, was not in his lexicon. It wasn't going to happen. But one day when I was 8 years old, and we went back to the Bronx where I was born, to Elaine's house where she had the bridal doll that once in a while she let me use. I was so happy to see her, and my father said, well, it's your birthday and tomorrow we're going to Macy's. And I said, I'm going to get the doll. I didn't say it out loud, but I knew it. We went over to Penn Station, got off, went to 434th, and went into Macy's. And on the wall, on the right side, on the first floor, there they were on the shelves, in the showcases, a brunette, a redhead, a blonde. I wanted the blonde with the blue eyes, and the eyes went like this. That's why I've been wearing lashes. I modeled her after her. And he took my hand, and I said, Daddy, there's the doll, there's the doll. And he took it, and he went right past the doll. He says, I'm going to get you something that's more important, that's going to have more value to you than a doll. He shoved me into the elevator, and we went up to the 8th floor, and he bought me an 80-bay chartreuse green accordion. Now that was dysfunctional. It wasn't that I was beaten, I wasn't abused, I wasn't neglected. It wasn't any of those things. But he didn't let me have what I wanted, just the doll. And then he forced me to get lessons in practice. I had to practice 2 hours every single day. I learned Chopin on the accordion. I could play Tchaikovsky on the accordion. I got an interview with the head of the University of Miami to get a scholarship with the accordion, but there was no place to put me. They can't put me in an orchestra, and they can't put me in a band. So I couldn't use the accordion to get the scholarship. But it broke my heart. And don't forget, back in the 50s, you were very obedient. You listened to your parents. So the accordion became my nemesis, and I hated my father from that day on. Now, I love my father, but I hated him also because he didn't let me have what I wanted. He didn't let me be what I wanted to be. He had an assignment for me. That is dysfunction. So I learned how to obey every man in my life until I became a therapist and suddenly realized that I had choices. So basically that's what this book is about. Most people who have difficulties in relationships bring their unresolved stuff from childhood into their relationship. They have no clue what's going on. And most of them have never had what is called a secure attachment when they were children. So I'm going to read you this one part. It's not the whole chapter. It's only 2.5 pages. And I want you to understand that this emptiness or this vacancy of not having a secure attachment, even when you think you do, because I thought I had a secure attachment, and I did, much more than most people do. And I adore my parents, and I miss them every day, and I love them, and I'll always love them. Because they just didn't know. He didn't know that he was doing anything wrong. He thought that he was giving me something that I would never forget. Until this day, every single day, when I get up in the morning, the first thing I do is turn on Puccini and listen to every opera until I get my stretching and my yoga and my weights. I listen to Puccini. I used to listen to CNN, but those days are over. I'd rather listen to Puccini now. So, a conscious relationship. After returning home from an encounter-centered couples therapy masterclass reunion in Ischia, Italy in May 2018, I received a letter from a woman named Judith, a colleague who helped coordinate the event and was reaching out to all of us who had attended. 2 months later, Judith passed away after a courageous 2+ year struggle with pancreatic cancer. She left a legacy of the lessons she learned during her fight, which complemented all of what she had practiced during her life's work. Her missive, which a portion of it is included here, highlighted the most salient questions she had been asking herself just before she passed, even when she did not know her days were numbered. A love letter. When I let go of what I am, I become what I might be. Lao Tzu. Hi, dearest friends. Saying goodbye has been difficult, and coming back to Paris, even more difficult. I guess you could say that I'm experiencing separation anxiety. I miss you all. Today I have felt lost, sad, tired, not wanting to eat, and I have been listening to music and just hanging out in bed. I have been reflecting on what is going on. I have been pondering this question all day. What has suddenly emerged is my experience during our gathering of love and secure attachment. Many of us have not known secure attachment as a child. I, for one, did not. And I have been working on this throughout my cancer journey with cellular memory as an amazing tool. I started thinking about the questions. What is love? And what does it feel like to be securely attached? I am referring to love and secure attachment on an essence or soul level rather than on an ego level. The words I came up with were feeling loved for who I am, not what I do. Feeling safe, feeling secure and that someone will protect me. Feeling seen, feeling heard, feeling able to be vulnerable, feeling loving eyes, feeling loving touch, feeling cherished, adored, unique, special, feeling appreciated for my differences and talents, feeling accepted when my behavior is different than others. The experience of this allows me to feel securely attached. The 3 days that we all spent together demonstrated all of that for me. As each day went by, our connection deepened until there was a space of love and trust where I felt secure and safe and able to share with you deeply and honestly and to receive you with respect, love, and curiosity. Thank you, each and every one of you, for being who you are. It was more than a 3-day gathering of ECCT therapists for me. It was an experience about being with loving, accepting, highly conscious people who are able to make space to receive the other fully and unconditionally. I feel that this experience will live on in me and my life will be different because of it. I bow to each of you. I love you, Judith. So what is a conscious relationship? Judith was my beloved friend and kindred spirit, a wizard therapist whose memory will live on within every soul she touched and every life she transformed. This book is dedicated to her. Her responses are the best description I can offer to a question many of you or many of us should be asking. What is a conscious relationship? The answer doesn't suddenly emerge out of the blue. It is not acquired in a moment, a year, or even for many in a lifetime. It takes a genuine commitment to create and maintain conscious relationships as individuals and as couples. We are not born knowing how to do that, and developing the necessary skills, tools, resources, and mindfulness takes practice and desire. While some may have parents who modeled a conscious relationship for us, this does not occur as often as we would like, because every family is dysfunctional to some degree. The term conscious relationship didn't exist in most of our families of origin. Virginia Satir, the founder of family therapy,